Welcome to the Safe Business Agility Podcast. This is the place to get advice, stories, perspectives, and updates about safe and related topics to help you work differently and build the future. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Today's guest is Rich Naster. Rich is a longtime member of the SAFE community. He was a former Framework team member and was actually one of the very first members of the Framework team. Today, Rich works for NTT Data, where he's encouraging organizations to embrace SAFE through the adoption of atomic habits and doing a little additional work with LPM and value stream management. I hope you enjoy this one with Rich Naster. All right, we are back at another SAFE Summit, this time in Nashville. And I'm sitting here with my good friend, Rich Naster. Rich and I have had the opportunity to work together, to teach together, and now we're going to have a conversation on this podcast for you. So, Rich, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here with you, Adam.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, I gotta get a little excited a minute because I like my podcast booth. So
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that this little creative outlet is turned into a thing that is a center part now at Summit. And I encourage people to stop by if they see us next year in Berlin or next year in Washington, grab a sticker, take some pictures, hang out. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, you know, I listen to your podcast all the time. So I walk about 3 miles every day. So that's how I catch up on the podcast. And, you know, I've seen your blogs too, and I think they're really great as well.
Well, I appreciate that, Rich. It means a lot coming from you. So let's talk a little bit about you. So I think in our community, you're a pretty well-known guy, but for those of you that might not know you, who is Rich?
Right. Okay. So I'm a SAFE fellow, and I worked for Scaled Agile for almost 10 years. Then I left to take on a few different roles. And prior to coming to Scaled Agile, I worked for companies like IBM and CBS and Warner Brothers. And so a mixture of banking, entertainment, and done a lot of methodology work throughout my entire career. You know, especially when we were working in a waterfall way. I knew it was inherently wrong. And, you know, I just started doing things that were in an agile way. And I think that's what kind of got me on the journey was figuring out a better way and not having people to work weekends and nights. And I hated that. Even though we would ship on time, on budget, but we would leave, you know, a lot of people behind, you know, really tired and stuff from that.
Yeah, those were definitely, I think there's a lot of us that have those memories. I mean, I'll never forget my first big tech project, and we were building a billing and OSS system for wireless providers. And, you know, we were acquired by a company, and as part of the acquisition, they told the founders that sold, you know, hey, if you do this modernization initiative by this date, we'll give you this much bonus. So of course they said, yeah, we'll do that. That date, no problem. And then for the next 3 years, I mean, it was exactly that. It was, I mean, I remember specifically there was one reporting initiative and we couldn't get reports to balance. And it was an entire summer of 24/7 trying to figure those things out. I think the good thing was we all really liked each other, and it was hard, but we still had fun.
Right.
But when you think about the time missed in summer vacations, and I mean, there's a lot of parents who will never get that summer back with their kids, and we just can't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I felt as well. So, you know, I got into Agile about 20 years ago, just about when the Agile Manifesto was signed. And, you know, I love doing Agile transformations. And really, I love the new tagline from Scaled Agile, work differently, build the future. And that's what it's all about when I work with clients. You know, how can we make what they're doing better? How can we make the work environment better? How can we make it more fun? So I just can't wait to get in the morning. And I really enjoy my job, you know, from the methodology work that I do to, you know, I also do sales now and answer RFPs, do consulting gigs, which are my favorite, working with customers and improving what they're doing.
So how did you come across Dean, Rich? I mean, because I know you've been doing this work for a long time, but you've been with Scaled Agile and part of the Framework team for, I mean, I think you said about 10 years.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I get called OG.
The original gangster,
yeah,
Rich
yeah.
Naster.
I think it's a cool term. And the way it got associated with Dean is I had taken a implementing SAFE class with Drew and Alex. And they said they were looking for, you know, people to join their team. and I was very interested. And I got an opportunity to speak at the class, and I did a thing on. At the time, I was working on Discipline Agile with Scott Ambler. So I was able to contribute a little bit to that, and so I did a talk on that. I then Drew and Alex said that I should come interview with them. And so I met them at Agile 2013. And, I met with Dean, I met with Drew and Colin, and, they made me an offer, and I was thrilled. It was so cool. And I reached out to Dean on Skype first, and I said to him, I'm really interested in SAFe. Do you think it's a good time now to, I was working for IBM at the time, and go out and be an independent consultant? And he said, sure, why don't you work for me?
That's not so independent, but kind of.
Yeah.
Boy, those first interviews, I remember the first time I think I interviewed with Drew was 2015, maybe. And Drew's not an easy interview. I mean,
Right.
I know when I was going through the SPCT program, there's kind of the lottery of who's going to be your guide. And I remember wanting anyone other than Drew. And of course I got Drew. But yeah, those were intense early days. But I mean, I think it's that intensity and that selectivity. I mean, it's brought us to where we're at today. I mean, it's hard to imagine that from a Skype conversation you had with Dean all those years ago, to now we're sitting in this conference hall with almost 2,000 practitioners, people who have been doing this work, people who are learning about it. I mean, it's kind of cool. I think sometimes when we're sitting at home in our offices, it's easy to forget the impact that the work we do has on others. And then you come here, and it's almost like Christmas morning. You see a bunch of happy people that are excited, that are learning things and hearing things for the first time. And it just reinvigorates you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need that, because often you're dealing with very difficult transformation situations. And when I come here, I get really recharged.
Sure.
And I love seeing the people in person, of course, nowadays. And it's funny because a lot of people I see on Zoom, I thought I had met them in person already, because
Sure.
we were on Zoom so many times.
Yeah. It's so kind of dovetailing on our conversation. I'm looking directly across the floor right now, and there's Martha Ann. So Martha Ann, she's coming to the next SPCT cohort. She works at MetLife, but she didn't work at MetLife 2 years ago. 2 years ago, she was an engineer, a systems engineer at Boeing. And when her now boss, Christine, was coming through the SPCT program, her immersion week, in her breakout group was Martha Ann. Christine recruited Martha Ann from Boeing to Met, and now her whole world is different. I mean, she went from being that systems engineer, being a mechanical engineer, and she's having so much fun doing the work that we all do, that's now her life. She left her gig at Boeing, and now she's basically leading a transformation at MetLife. And it's a really cool thing to see all of the people and how they're all improving the lives of others. And I mean, similarly, Rebecca's standing right there. Rebecca's on the framework team now.
Yes.
And her origin story is similar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see how everything comes full circle.
No, and if you look at all the people here and how many companies that we have helped to become better, and also really have helped people in their careers.
Sure.
A lot of people were kind of stalled in their careers, and they found SAFe, and they found that they could really make a business out of SAFe. And so the work that Dean and the entire company have done to bring this to the world is just amazing. That's what drives my passion, and gets me up in the morning to write things, and whether it's articles or whether it's books, it really just fuels my fire.
Rich, did you know that Chick-fil-A is a customer?
No, I did not know Chick-fil-A is a customer.
I didn't know that until maybe an hour ago.
Do we get discounts?
I mean, I'm hoping. Actually, I've got a friend of mine that he owns a Chick-fil-A franchise, and he's giving out those cards. We play golf together, and I have to tip with cash, and he tips with Chick-fil-A cards. And
Right.
Guess who's more popular? It's not me. So your time at Scaled Agile, I mean, obviously you've done a lot. You were a member of the framework team. What were some of your favorite things about writing? Plug your book a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, what was your evolution like from those early days at Scaled Agile to where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the favorite thing that I did at Scaled Agile was being part of the framework team and writing articles and identifying new ways of working, and also being making things simpler. I like, because I would teach a lot and do consulting, and a lot of times we would say words and they wouldn't understand it. And so my passion was being able to simplify what we were saying so we can bring the framework to everyone. And no matter what country they're in, they can understand what we were saying.
Was that the driving force behind the Safe Distilled series?
Absolutely. That was one of the driving forces. And, when you have a book, it gives a lot more credibility to your product about that book. So I thought it was really important, and I just enjoyed the process so much. And when I get writing, I'm like a train. I can't stop writing until something is done. So I love writing, but when I'm in that state, I kind of ignore everything else, and sometimes I'm up to 2:00 in the morning writing, because if I'm in the zone, then I just keep going.
Rich, I think you just justified buying a cabin in Vermont for business purposes.
Yeah.
That can be your writing escape. Totally tax deductible. I'm not an accountant, but maybe.
I'll check with my accountant.
Well, that's good, man. So what has it been? Maybe 2 years now? You left Scaled Agile full time, right? You're still very close. You're still contributing and doing all of those things. But what was your time like after Scaled Agile, and where are you at now?
Yeah. So when I left Scaled Agile, I left for an opportunity in a startup company with software with a CEO that knew me from my days at IBM. And I was really happy at Scaled Agile. I wasn't looking to leave, but he was really compelling about the vision of what they were trying to achieve with value stream management and being able to look at the entire value chain, and not only just looking at whether things are flowing, but the things that were flowing, were we getting value from it? And being able to measure that value and to able to instrument what happens when we release something into production. Can we see that that was a worthwhile investment? And then after that, unfortunately, that didn't go too well. As it happens with startups many times. And then I moved on to work with Agile Rising and also NTT Data. Some of the people at Digital AI went to NTT Data. And so I was working for Agile Rising part-time, and I still needed some more things to do. And, they brought me on from people that knew me at Digital AI. They knew my work in value stream management and LPM and just SAFe in general.
So let's talk about NTT. So you landed at NTT. What's the lay of the land there right now? I mean, so what's kind of the history of NTT Data for people that might not know, and what are they trying to do now?
Yes, so they started out as a phone company, and I think at one point they were Nippon Telephone and Telegraph, and now the company's name is just NTT, and it's a very large organization, and they do lots of things. They develop a lot of great technology, and they also do a lot of application development for customers so that they don't have to do that in-house. And I was brought on there to help them build their value stream management business. And along with value stream management comes LPM. So to do that, as well as to bring SAFe to the organization. Now, not many people don't know this, but NTT Data has 220 people that are SAFe certified as either a SPC or they're a SAFe Agilist. So there's a lot of good talent there that knows SAFe already, but it really hasn't been as widely brought to the customers. So that's another thing I'm doing, because when you got something that you really are passionate about and love, now I can bring this to the rest of the world. And NTT Data is a global organization, and so we're going to expand the use of SAFe at our clients. We have a huge client base, and I think that it's going to be really helpful for those organizations, not only to have us do their application development, but also transform how their organization works.
Interesting. So NTT right now is doing a lot of app dev support. Are they looking to get into the transformation business as well? Or is it just going to be as a byproduct of the development work that they do?
No, they've been doing transformation for a while, but I don't think a lot of people knew about that because they're more well known for the application development and application modernization. And then a couple of years ago, they started the Business Agility Enablement Group. and they've been doing transformations ever since.
Interesting. I see Glenn standing over there.
Yes.
Glenn and I worked together a long time ago.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is. He's not bad. He's all right.
Oh, he might be listening to the podcast.
I hope he is.
You don't want to swell his head. I get
No,
it.
the first time I worked with Glenn, it was, I think, his first day on the job, and he was parachuted in to co-train with me in Chicago. And I didn't know who he was, so I didn't trust him, so I didn't let him do a lot. But then he rapidly won me over, and he's a good guy.
Yeah,
so,
he is.
So that's good. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. So with you being there, Rich, I can imagine that there's going to be some sort of a focus on value stream management and some sort of a focus on LPM. I mean, LPM, I think, you primarily with help from Dima created a lot of that original IP.
Yeah, and not only Dima, but the rest of the framework team. Because, all content in the framework, it gets touched. Everyone's hands have been involved in that article. We used to do what's called mob reviews. So everyone would read and contribute to the articles.
Well, I can say from personal experience, your first ideas won't pass the sniff test. They will be destroyed. And then what comes later will actually be something you're proud of.
Yes.
So I learned early on from Dean that don't try and bring something to the team that you think is perfect, because no matter how good or bad it is, it's not going to be perfect. So just bring us the ugly draft, and then we can work together to get to something better.
Right. That's what Agile is all about. Is creating something small, seeing if it gets traction, and then expanding upon it that way. So at Scaled Agile, we very much follow SAFe. So the process is used, and it really works well there. So it's no surprise. And NTT Data, I'm bringing Scaled Agile there, and with value stream management, I wrote a book called Value Stream Management for the Digital Age, and now we're using a lot of that content in the work that we're doing. And I just created recently a health survey with a colleague of mine, Jim Rice, to assess how people are doing with value stream management. And this way we can start helping them understand where their weaknesses may be and how we can help them grow. And, you can get tremendous improvement from if you just improve a little bit each day. In fact, that's what my talk is on this week, is on the atomic habits of LPM leaders. And if you improve 1% every day, then over the course of the year, you can improve 37%. So we really want to have this message hit home. And, whatever you're doing, whether you're doing waterfall, you're doing Agile, it doesn't matter. We start from wherever you are, and then we look to improve.
Well, and that's the secret to all of this, right? For as deep as the framework is, for as much guidance as there is, when it comes down to it, it's about changing behavior. It's about changing how we think. It's about changing how we treat others. And, truthfully, the mechanics of the framework are not that difficult. What's hard is the behavioral changes that have to take place in order for the framework to work the way that it's intended to, right? You can go in there and throw some numbers and do, weighted shortest job first.
Right.
But it's getting to those numbers and getting to that consensus and having those hard conversations about what's right for not just me, but for all of us. That's where the challenge is.
Yeah, and that's why I really believe in this notion of atomic habits, because we are, in essence, the product of our habits. And in order to become agile, you have to change the way you do things and then make them a habit. So it's just the way that you work. And that doesn't happen at the same time for everyone. And I think that's the difficulty.
Sure. So, Rich, can you tell us more about your talk? I mean, what are some of the 1% yielding 37 is interesting. What are some of the ways that people get there?
Yeah, so I've outlined some of the behaviors that LPM leaders need to do, and then talk about how they can achieve those new habits. So some things are kind of simple, and I kind of compare it to my weight loss journey. I've lost about 40 pounds, and I did that through reading this book and really internalizing it. So, for example, every day I go for a walk. Usually 3 miles. If I can't do 3 miles, I do whatever I can. If my feet are hurting me, I will tie my shoes and just get outside. So, and then my habit just carries me forward. Like, habits are one of the most powerful forces of human behavior. And by doing that, it gets me to do things like I have to do my exercise in addition to my walking. Otherwise, I don't feel right. And it wasn't until that became a habit, did it really make a difference. The other thing is, it's very easy to fall into what I call the valley of despair. You've been working out maybe for a couple of months, and you're not really seeing any difference in your weight or the shape of your body, but it's happening. Every day it's improving a little bit. And if you can be patient, you'll come out of that valley of despair, and then you'll look back and you'll see how much that you've got improved. So that's what my talk is about. And I don't think it just applies to LPM. It really applies to any part of the framework, at least the Atomic Habits part of it.
Or life in general.
Yes.
Rich, are you familiar with a program called Hard 75?
No, I'm not.
So it sounds like it would be an easy adoption for you based on what you just said. So you're basically, I think you're focused on 5 critical habits. So 2 of those are you have to work out for 45 minutes a day, twice. One of those workouts needs to be outside. So if you go for a walk outside for 45 minutes, that counts. If you do yoga or something like that for the second 45, well, that's 2. And then beyond that, you have to read 10 pages of a book.
Right.
And you need to write in your journal. And you need to follow some sort of a structured, intentional way of eating. It doesn't say you have to follow a diet. It just says pick a way that you want to try to eat that's best for you and stick with it. And if you can do that for 75 days in a row, then all of those things become habits. It's not something you have to think about anymore. That's just how you work and how you live.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think as much as the days, although I can understand it, it's how many reps that you get of doing that habit. And the more times you do that habit, the more likely it is that you're going to adapt it. Why can't organizations get the lean, agile mindset? It's because they're not practicing it every day.
They're not getting the reps.
They're not getting the reps. So that's the most important thing, is that you get that experience doing that. And your mind just moves your body. I mean, I can't go a day now without exercising. And, you can also get rid of your bad habits the same way. Like, if you don't want to watch a lot of TV, then what you should do is after you watch a program, pull the plug out of the wall and hide your remote so it's not in a visible manner. So now I've just made it inconvenience. I'm providing friction to not do the bad habit. And so that's a big part of it as well.
So in the military, we learned something similar. And it was anytime you're doing anything big and hard, don't focus on the big hard thing. Focus on the next step. So for example, if you're doing an extended run or you're doing maybe a 50-mile ruck march, don't focus on 50 miles. Focus on getting to the next telephone pole, and then the next telephone pole, and the next tree, and the bend in the road. And before you do it, those small micro goals lead you to the finish line, right? But when you start thinking about, I have to carry this 90-pound backpack up a hill and down a hill and up a hill for the next 50 miles, you're basically defeated before you even start.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds scary.
It's fun, Rich. People do it for recreation. But so I think there's a lot to that. And I think there could be something kind of cool if we could almost create a behavioral challenge for embracing lean agile ways of working. Because like we said, it's less about the things that you do and more about how you behave, how you make decisions, and how you treat others. I wonder if there's something we could build that would be, for the first PI or for whatever it might be, practice intentionally these 4 or 5 behavioral patterns to start really embodying the lean agile mindset. Again, doing the mechanics is easy, but doing your best to embrace the mindset, values, and principles, that's what's really hard. And I think where a lot of organizations struggle, and when you hear that, change is hard and SAFe feels a certain way or whatever, it's not the mechanics, it's that we struggle to change the behaviors that make the mechanics work as intended.
Right, and we often don't truly understand the new behaviors. We hear it, we read about it, but we haven't really internalized it yet. So I think that, I could definitely see that where a team can come up with what do they want to change in terms of their behaviors for the next PI, and then see how many reps they can get, in with that. Did it help? Did it get improved? What do we have to change? So I think that would be a very powerful way in order for organizations to start getting the lean agile mindset. Because if you don't practice it, how are you ever going to really make it become part of you? It has to become part of your identity. So, for example, when you want to write more, you need to make that part of your identity. So, I think of myself as a writer now. So that's part of my identity. Not that I want to read 10 pages a day or write, 10 pages a day, is that you you associate that habit with your identity, and it really makes things stronger that way. You're just not going to run. You're going to become a runner. You see the difference?
No, that's absolutely right. And specifically with running, when I have friends that want to go running with me, that's one of the things I coach them to. It's, hey,
well, you must scare them, with your 50-mile story there with a backpack. I hope they don't have to do that.
Oh, Phil down here, one of our partners, he's a CrossFit guy. And when he was in Boulder last, I said, hey, you want to come for a run with me? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. Where do we go? And I pointed to the mountain and I just said, well, we're going to go up that. And he said, there's zero chance I'm ever running with you. But the point is, so I encourage people to not focus on going for a run. It's, let's, become a runner.
Right.
Let's learn about it. Learn how to fuel your body. Learn, the different things that you can do to be successful. And if you go out there and your first run is a 14-minute mile pace, well, guess what? You're still a runner. And, when you go look back a month from now and maybe you're running a 10-minute mile, you're a runner, and you're a runner that's improving. And also, when you go from that 10-minute mile back to a 12, you're still a runner.
Right.
Because we're always evolving and we're always improving.
Yeah, so that's why these things are so important. And that's what Agile is all about, is breaking things down into smaller chunks and being able to get accomplishment, get some wins, get some more wins. It really builds the momentum. It makes a huge difference in changing your ways of working if you can do it incrementally and it not be so hard to get there, or at least get you going. And once you get started on something, I find that the momentum just carries me forward. Like an object in motion stays in motion. I think that was one of the Newton laws, I believe.
I think somebody wrote that somewhere at some point. All right, Rich. So remind us again, what is the title of your talk? Because all of the talks from Summit will be available on Safe Studio, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out. So if folks want to go back and listen to your talk, what's it listed under? What's the title?
The title is The Atomic Habits of LPM Leaders.
Perfect. And if they want to find you directly, Rich, and we'll also plug Safe Distilled, because even though there's no 6.0 distilled yet, there's still a lot of good content out there in Safe 5 Distilled. So if folks want to find you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can go to the NTT Data booth. Of course, you can get me on the app or reach out to me through LinkedIn. And anyone who's ever attended my classes know that once you attend one of my classes, you're always in the Rich Naster Club. And so I have no problem with people reaching out to me directly and getting help, whether they've been in my class or not, because I just love helping others.
Rich Naster, thank you for taking the time to hang out.
Thanks, Adam. It's been a pleasure.
All right, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. The entire team at Scaled Agile is focused on helping you be better at work so that you can help your enterprise be more successful in the new age of business. If there's anything else we can do to help, if there are any other assets you'd like to see, content, podcast guests, just let us know. Also, please check out Safe Studio, where you'll find tools, toolkits, resources, videos, and so much more to help you be successful in the world of work. As always, if you appreciate this content, the greatest compliment you can give us is a referral to a friend or colleague. And if you feel so inclined, we do always appreciate those likes, comments, subscribes, and reviews on your podcast platform of choice. My name is Adam Mattis. Until next time, as they say, stay safe.